Hi, folks. Welcome to Broadband Deployment News. The House and the Senate have introduced their versions of what they want in the next Farm Bill. The Senate being much more explicit in what, as far as I guess, much more detailed is what they're talking about, including broadband and what they want to see in the next 5 years as far as broadband goes and USDA ReConnect broadband funds. Be right back with more. Thanks for joining me. Rick Uzzi here with Zcorum with Broadband Deployment News. So the Farm Bill is something that gets passed. I think they try to do it for like every 5 years. They have a bill that's supposed to last 5 years. The one that we're on now has been extended a year, so they could not come to any agreement last year. So we're kind of in the 6th year of a 5-year bill, and they're trying to get another bill through Congress that would authorize the next group of things that are in the Farm Bill for another 5 years. So remains to be seen whether that's going to happen, especially when you look at what both sides want, and it being an election year. It's very possible that, hang on, let me go to this first one, the story here. It's very possible that it will not get anywhere this year. It's an election year. They're kind of far apart on some areas. At this point, we've just got a very brief summary from the House. We've got a much more detailed summary from the Senate on what they want. So we have a better idea of what they're looking for, but there's different things that they don't agree upon. So whether this goes anywhere, as far as another farm bill for 5 years, remains to be seen. And if not, I think the next step or fallback position would be extending what we have for one more year. And then it would be a new administration, whoever wins, and then it would be easier, I think, at that point to then work on a bill that would be 5 years instead of just the one. So anyway, we'll see what happens, but I did want to look through, I'll read through the story real quick, just a couple of points here, and then I wanted to look through the relevant portions of the summaries related to broadband. So you see here, Senate Agriculture Committee, Chairwoman Debbie, and this one is specifically about the Senate bill. So you see it, Senate bill extends ReConnect to 2029, and this is Inside Towers. It's an article there, which I linked to in the description, as well as to the two summaries of the bills. Senate Agriculture Committee, Chairwoman Debbie Stabenow, Democrat from Michigan, introduced the Rural Prosperity and Food Security Act, or the Farm Bill, which would authorize $650 million for the ReConnect Rural Broadband Grant and Loan Program for each fiscal year from 2025 through 2029. The measure would devote $350 million to direct loans for each fiscal year from 2025 to 2029. It also establishes a grant loan and grant loan combination program for costs of construction, improvement, or acquisition of facilities and equipment for broadband service in rural areas. ReConnect projects must be 100 meg symmetrical in areas where at least 75% of the households lack access to broadband services of at least 100 by 20. So that's kind of the underserved definition. 25.3 to 120 is underserved in the BEAD program. According to Benton Institute for Broadband and Society, it prioritizes projects in areas where at least 90% of households lack access to broadband service of at least 100 by 20. And a lot of that's very similar to what we have in the current USDA ReConnect program. That was upgraded to be 100 symmetrical, and I believe these might be the same percentages. The measure contains more than 100 bipartisan bills and puts the 2024 Farm Bill back on track to being signed into law by the end of 2024, notes Stabenow. So again, it's not on track now because we're in a 1-year extension. So they're trying to get this in place to do a 5-year bill, and then that is something that's looked at every 5 years, and then they determine what we need. So, one question that might come up is, do we need this kind of funding for the next 5 years with the BEAD program and all the funds that are going towards that? I think it would be good to have, especially in these rural areas where it can be very expensive, to have the USDA ReConnect program there to back up areas and help states and service providers provide areas that are service to areas that are very difficult, and usually it tends to be very rural, is usually what the issue is in some of these areas. But does it need to be for the next 5 years? So maybe a 1-year extension would be good, and then we can look at it again. I don't know. But the two, again, the House and the Senate have their little summaries, and the Senate actually looks like the bill. You can see here, it doesn't say summary, it's just section by section summary, I guess. There'd probably be more detail in the bill, but there's a lot of stuff in here about all kinds of things. A lot about climate change in here, and that could be one of the areas. I know it's not like the Republican side of the House don't want anything to do with the climate, but there's a big emphasis on climate in here, and that's always a question where they would be maybe separated from, because it's about climate change. There's a lot of climate change terminology in here. So I go through this. I'm going to skip everything until I get to the USDA ReConnect. So that's about page 41, I think. Here we go. Getting there. Page 41. So USDA ReConnect Program. Again, much of what I just read there. So establishes this grant loan and grant loan combination. Speeds of 100 by 100. Again, at least 75% of the households lack access. And then it mentions here the prioritization of projects in areas where 90% of households lack access to broadband. Now, those should be fairly small areas here after some of these BEAD funding opportunities are done. But again, this could supplement that with the way BEAD is going. Again, I don't know if we need to do it for 5 years, but the way BEAD is going, we probably won't be seeing any funds put out until very late 2025, and maybe a good portion of it in 2026, maybe most of it in 2026. So we're talking about this could work prior to that in 2025. It could work in conjunction a year or two after that. But hopefully there won't be too many areas where there's 90% of the areas that are lacking access to that kind of service. They'd be small areas if they do. But again, in these rural areas, it could be a large area with just a few homes or farms, usually farms. Let's see, allows applications from state and local governments, tribes, corporations, organizations of 2 or more incorporated areas. I don't think any of that's different from the current ReConnect program. Restricts the use of assistance under this program to deploy broadband in areas where another entity is deploying broadband service using broadband grants and loans under other federal and state programs. That's interesting because it doesn't restrict the use in areas that already have service. Well, I shouldn't take that. It does the other. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It does say that because you got the 100 by 20 where it's eligible will be these areas that don't have 100 by 20. So that actually is taken into account. So this would be, in other words, if there's already committed funds somewhere or some deployment going on, you would not want to overbuild there. Requires awardees to participate in federal internet affordability assistance programs. So we don't have the ACP right now. That may get resurrected or something new created. So they kind of left the language here open, and that if there is a federal internet affordability assistance program, then anybody that would be getting funds through this would have to comply with that. Rescinds unobligated amounts made available to carry out Section 779 of Division A of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2018. That's basically taking money that I think in this act was maybe extended to USDA ReConnect, or maybe it might be through other funding. So saying anything that's left over from that would then fall into this program. So you take those unused funds and put it in here. And it appropriates the amount equal to that rescission for this program, authorizes $650 million for each of the fiscal years, 2025 through 2029, as we read earlier. Authorizes $350 million for each of the fiscal years, 2025 through 2029, to provide direct loans under the Section 601 of the Rural Electrification Act, as in effect before the date of enactment of this act. So USDA ReConnect has always been a 100% grant or 100% loan or a combination of the two. And there's certain stipulations as to whether you can apply for certain ones, but there's always that choice. So you could take a full grant, or you can do a loan that you got to pay back, those kinds of things. And there's a few other things in here that covers, you see, the expansion of middle mile infrastructure into rural areas. So it extends that authorization through 2029. An innovative broadband advancement program, it extends that through 2029. Community Connect grant programs expands eligible service under that program to allow rural areas where the broadband service capacity is less than 25 by 3. Again, hopefully there won't be too many of those left, if any. Increases build out speed requirements to 100 by 20. And when I say if any, again, it depends on when all this gets passed. BEAD funding will not have an impact for the next year or so. So, when we say out through 2029, towards the end of this, hopefully there won't be anything left. Extends authorization of appropriations through fiscal year 2029. And I think, was that it in here? Was there anything else? Let me see. What do we got here? Last acre projects, as opposed to last mile projects. So allows the secretary to fund projects to advance precision agriculture by making grants and loans to broadband providers and wireless equipment or communications services providers to carry out projects that provide broadband service at speeds of not less than 100 by 20 on agricultural land that lacks access to service speeds at that level. So this would be for precision agriculture. And you notice it's 100 by 20. So some of these technologies are going to have to use wireless because, fixed wireless, for example, or maybe even mobile wireless, I guess. But you're not going to be running fiber through the fields to be able to do this precision agriculture. So that's talking about that there. Requires providers to meet certain cybersecurity requirements and allows providers to use a certain percentage of the assistance under this section to address the requirements. And the current USDA ReConnect program, I think it's the fourth round. The round that's currently going on, the applications are due on, I think it's May 28th. It's either the 21st or the 28th. I can't recall, but it's coming up. In fact, I should know that because tomorrow I'm doing a broadcast again with Travis Abrams from UNS, and we'll be talking about the cybersecurity requirements for USDA ReConnect, which are in this current round. They were just added for the first time in this current round. Again, that application closes here coming up toward the end of May. Can't remember which date. It's in the video. I'll go ahead and post a link to that so that if you're interested in that, you can watch it live if you see this prior to tomorrow at 3 o'clock, because that's when we're doing it, 3 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. Or it'll be there if you want to watch a replay. If you click that same link after we do it, there'll be a replay of that. If you watch live, you can ask questions. So if you're an internet service provider, this is going to be talking about basic cybersecurity requirements for USDA ReConnect, but they also apply to BEAD. They also apply to enhanced EACAM, that program. And frankly, it's going to apply to every internet service provider soon because they're through the federal government's looking at a proposal to make all internet service providers or communications providers, considering that it's critical infrastructure, that they're going to have cybersecurity plans in place. And they're all going to be kind of focused around the NIST cybersecurity framework. So we're going to be talking about that tomorrow, specifically to USDA ReConnect, but it really does apply to cybersecurity for any of these new federal programs. And really, again, it's probably going to apply to every single internet service provider. So you might want to check that out. Again, I'll put a link after I'm done here. I'll put a link to that video or that stream that we're doing tomorrow, and that will be good. From then on, you'll be able to watch the recording, assuming it takes place. Because I did this, we talked about this another time a month or so ago, or three weeks ago, and unfortunately we had to cancel because there was something unforeseen that came up. So everything looks good that we will be doing again. We'll be doing this live tomorrow. So make sure you check in on that on cybersecurity. Requires reporting on the projects, including the number of covered producers subscribing to broadband service provided under each project funded under this section. I believe covered producers would be the internet service providers, the people that are providing the service. Authorizes $160 million for each fiscal year 2025 through 2029 and terminates the authority to make grants or loans under this section on September 30th, 2029. So that's when that would all end. So again, very detailed, this whole bill. And again, this is just a few pages that I looked at on USDA ReConnect. There's all kinds of other stuff in here on the Farm Bill in general, if you want to check that out. And then on the Republican side, I shouldn't say the Republican side, the Senate is controlled by the Democrats, so it's kind of their bill. Republican House is barely controlled, or the House is barely controlled by the Republicans, so this would be their bill, and this is their summary. There's just really not much in here. It's a summary. It's not like the entire bill and everything that's going to be in there. And this is what you see. This is all you see is under rural development. You see strengthens broadband connectivity to rural communities, improves precision agriculture practices, and increasing accessibility of precision agriculture services. Streamlines the permitting process for rural development projects. That would be good as well, to streamline that. So these are all things that would help broadband again, but there's no detail in here on the number of years for that, how much money. So that's kind of wide open. So whether the Senate and the House are going to get together and actually pass a farm bill this year is questionable to me, considering especially election year, kind of late in the year now, lots going on. So I don't expect it. What I really do expect, but I wanted to make sure you're aware that this was out there, and give you a chance to look at it. But what I really do expect is that, hopefully they'll extend. We have now one more year, and then again next year we'll be in a new administration, either second term of the Biden administration or first term of the Trump administration, assuming the two candidates are the two that make it to election day. And that being the case, then I think we'd have the next chance of seeing a new 5-year bill come out. And then it could look quite different on the broadband side. We don't know, because again, they might consider the fact that the BEAD funding is going to be just that much closer to coming out. And there'll be more information on how much, by that time, even before the BEAD funding comes out, there'll be better information on the number of households that do not have access to broadband over, let's say, 100 by 20 and 100 by 100. So, then it'll maybe determine how much money and how many years, because they might say, let's not do it for all 5 years for broadband. Let's cut it off at some point, because they can always extend certain portions later. So again, it might be a little bit different, but again, I think we're probably going to see this extended this year. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. If you like this, give it a like, give it a thumbs up on the video. If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified when I'm live. Again, right after this live broadcast is over, I'm going to post a link to the live stream I'm doing tomorrow at 3 o'clock Eastern time on cybersecurity for USDA ReConnect. And again, that applies to BEAD funding, EACAM, and most likely, if you're an internet service provider, it will apply to you at some point in the near future. Maybe not near like next year, but probably the year after. I'm thinking by the time they get through all that stuff through there, you're going to be required to do these things. And honestly, you should be doing it anyway, because you're an internet service provider and it's your core business. So if you get a ransomware attack and suddenly you can't provide service to your subscribers, broadband service to your subscribers, because things are locked down, that's a serious situation. Or if you get hacked and your subscriber information gets out there, then that's not good for your reputation. Those are just two reasons right there you should be doing it. And then finally, you might find out when you go to renew your business insurance that you might have a cybersecurity requirement for that as well, because insurance companies are starting to look at that, because it's very expensive when you get hacked, if you get ransomware, that kind of thing. Just getting it cleaned up, even if you don't pay the ransom, getting everything, getting all your data back, or relaunching everything is difficult. And by the way, if you back up your data, that doesn't mean if you get ransomware, that doesn't mean that the folks will not put that out on the dark web. So that'll be their next threat. So they will say, if you want your data back, pay us. We've got our data. We don't need to pay you. Okay, well, we'll just stick it out there on the dark web. So you'll have all your subscriber information, whatever that data is, out there. And again, that's not good for your reputation. Again, hopefully you can join me tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Otherwise, I will see you next time for Broadband Deployment News. Take care. Bye-bye.